professional serving community, talkradio.nyc.
Hello, everyone. I'm Linda Marcanico. Welcome to the A Train to Sedona. The A Train to Sedona is also the name of a book I wrote, a memoir where I share my successes and failures on my spiritual journey. I wrote the book to have my voice be heard and to inspire your journey. You can purchase a signed copy on my website at lindamarcanico.com on Buy the Book page. You can get an unsigned copy at retail and bookstores. If you'd like to read the first 7 pages for free, you can do so on Amazon. I have a free gift for you, a high vibration sheet to use when you want to bring yourself to the present moment, to bring your energy to a high place, especially in this uncertain world. It's very helpful for your toolkit. There are 7 exercises. One would be a regular meditation, another is a walking meditation, the other is a breathing exercise. You can download the free gift at lindamarcanico.com. There are 2 disclaimers. One, that being part of Talk Radio New York City does not establish a professional relationship, and that the opinions expressed here do not represent Talk Radio New York City. Today, I have as my guest Samantha Kaaua. She is a TEDx speaker, an international best-selling author, and renowned marriage coach known for her counterculture approach to relationships. As the creator of Inner Mosaic, the method, and Marriage Mindshift process, she helps individuals build self-trust and transform their marriages. Her international best-selling book, Finding Beauty in Your Broken Pieces, The Art and Science of Transforming Any Relationship, has inspired audiences around the world to heal past hurts and create meaningful change in their relationships. Welcome to the show, Samantha.
Thank you, Linda. It's so wonderful to be here. Thanks for having me.
Well, we know each other for a
Yes, we
while
do.
now from Clarity Confidence Connection.
Yes.
You were hosting me, and it was a wonderful experience for me to kind of get my feet wet.
Thanks. It was wonderful to have you on.
So my first question is, you have such a unique perspective on marriage and relationships. When we go back to your childhood and adolescence and into the adult you, what are the influences that bring you to where you are today?
Yeah, that's a great question. I often tell people that the work that I do is my life story. I was born, well, my parents split and then got divorced when I was still about 1 year old. So I actually have no recollection of my parents being together. So I was a product of divorced parents. I was a product of divorced grandparents, and divorce just was all around me. And at a really young age, I remember making a conscious choice that when I grew up, I wasn't going to get divorced. And especially if I had children, and not that I felt traumatized or negatively impacted by my parents' divorce, but more so because I just had this knowingness of I want to do better. Not that they did bad, but
Mm-hmm.
I felt that every generation was here to just do better. And
Mm-hmm.
I I used to say I was an old lady when I was really little. I told my parents and uh, freak them out. But I would say things and know things like that at a really young age, that I'm just here to do better. And I swore I would. But you fast forward my life until high school and dating ages, right? And I found myself, I was dating my high school sweetheart. We ended up having a daughter right out of high school. And then we waited a few years, got married, bought a house, had more children. And after having our second and third daughter, I hit a dark night of my soul, and so did my husband. And we found ourselves on the brink of divorce. And I stood there and I sat there and I thought back and I was like, wow, I swore I would never be this. I would never get here. And here I am, this self-fulfilling prophecy.
How many
And
years had you been married at that point?
at that point, we were married 4 years, five, but we were together for a long time because we
Yeah.
were high school sweethearts. So at that time, we were probably together about 8 or 9 years,
Mm-hmm.
going on 10, but we were only married about like 4 years
I see.
because we had waited to get married.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it was such an eye opener, and to find myself at such a crossroads and making these really life-changing, life-altering decisions for myself and my daughters. I have 3 girls. Um, it was really scary. And we did everything society tells us to do. I found a marriage therapist because I was actually going to school to become a marriage therapist at that time. I had just I had just taken my final exam around the time, and it was it didn't work. Marriage therapy didn't work for us. It was really devastating to find ourselves now stuck in a position where that was the one way out. That was the one way that was supposed to work and help
Mm-hmm.
us. And it didn't. And so I embarked on my journey after that to work on myself, and said I would never, I made a very firm decision that I wasn't going to leave my marriage until I felt like a whole person.
Mm-hmm.
And it was our saving grace, because I would have walked away um, due to my husband's addiction and his depression,
Mm-hmm.
and I having really young children at the time,
Yeah.
a 1-year old and an infant, and then my 6-year-old daughter, 7-year-old daughter, older one, and
Mm-hmm.
I was in postpartum depression too. So we could have easily just split apart, walked
Yes.
away, and that one decision allowed everything to unfold. And that's what I teach other women and other couples how to do, is to transform their relationship from the
Mm-hmm.
inside out. And it only takes one person's willingness to
Mm-hmm.
do so.
What inspired you to work on yourself? What the thought came, you saw something. What was that inspiration? I'm going to work on myself. Did you say I'm going to work on myself to improve my relationship, or
No.
I'm not going to leave until I improve myself?
Yeah, there's a couple of different a few different layers to it. One, I was always into personal development, so it was just fun for me to discover more of who I am and what I like and what I want. So I wanted to do that anyways. Two, I felt so lost. I had no spiritual foundation, at least a solid one, that I
Mhm.
felt like I could lean on, and had all these different spiritual experiences growing up, and just felt so much fear around the concept of spirituality, or just even unseen forces, that I wanted to dive into that and discover that and find my spiritual foundation. And we're talking some spiritual talk here, but at that time I was so desperate for answers. I sought out advice from psychics. I went to two psychics, and one of them told me that I would be divorced by the end of the year and that my youngest daughter would become a drug addict like my husband.
Oh my
And
goodness.
I freaked out, to say the least. I freaked out. But intuitively, the second psychic I went to talked about how gifted my girls are, how sensitive they are to energy, and how just gifted. And I put two and two together because I had worked in the substance abuse field for years, helping people to work through their own addictions. It's so ironic that I was working in addiction, and then my husband, I found out he had an addiction. But in that work, I knew that these people, majority of them, were just really misguided, highly sensitive to energy and all the forces, and to numb themselves and to survive, they used substances. And I knew that if I didn't help my daughter understand her gifts, she could potentially go down this path of numbing herself, of trying to cancel out the overstimulation that she was feeling.
Yes.
And so that was part of the vow too that I made was, well, I can't help my daughter understand her gifts if I didn't understand mine. So here I go. Let's go. And that's why I stayed so focused on learning, finding my spiritual path, but also improving myself, because like I said, I wasn't going to leave my marriage until I felt like a whole person, and I needed to do the work to feel that way. So those were the two driving forces of me staying focused on myself.
We always have to do the work.
Yes.
We get an inspiration and it's beautiful in the moment, and then we
Yeah.
have to do the work.
Yeah. No bypasses.
No. And which of your daughters is more spiritually gifted?
The one that the first psychic was talking about was my youngest, but actually all three of them are highly gifted. Just she would have been the most influenced in that way, because she could just turn it, she would want to turn it off. But she was the one that we would walk into a room. She was maybe 4 to 6 months old. We would walk into a room with people in it, and she would immediately just start screaming. She could feel different energies instantly. And I also had to teach her to calm her energy by making her a bath of essential oils, and we would put Hawaiian salt in it and help her to self-regulate. So she definitely is more susceptible to the energies around her than the other two girls. But yeah, they all are gifted and sensitive in their own way.
How wonderful. I wanted to say something about a psychic reading. Energy is shifting all the time. And I understand that it's presented in a circle of possibilities.
Yes.
And for the appropriate reading, the reader has really the responsibility to go in and figure that out.
Right.
This is just a possibility. You have this possibility and that possibility. So wonderful that you went on to see someone else and retained your own sense of reality and intuition about that.
Yeah. I say it calmly now, but I was freaking out then.
I'm sure. So now, Samantha, we are getting ready for a break. But when we come back, I'd like to talk about the role of spirituality in your life.
Yes, let's do it.
All right. So off we go to our commercial break.
Are you a conscious co-creator? Are you on a quest to raise your vibration and your consciousness? I'm Sam Leibowitz, your conscious consultant, and on my show, The Conscious Consultant Hour Awakening Humanity, we will touch upon all these topics and more. Listen live at our new time on Thursdays at 12 noon Eastern Time. That's The Conscious Consultant Hour Awakening Humanity, Thursdays 12 noon on talkradio.nyc.
Are you a high-achieving, growth-oriented leader? Are you interested in developing your authentic leadership while creating a healthy, inclusive workplace? Hi, I'm Dr. Mira Brancu, host of The Hard Skills on talkradio.nyc at 5 p.m. Eastern on Tuesdays, where we discuss how leaders develop the hard skills needed to make a greater impact. We interview experts, have live coaching, and tackle these challenges. Listen to The Hard Skills on Tuesday at 5 p.m. Eastern on talkradio.nyc.
You're listening to Talk Radio NYC. Uplift, educate, empower.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the A Train to Sedona with my guest, Samantha Kaaua. Samantha, would you tell us about the role of spirituality in your life?
Yes, I feel like it is the backbone of everything that I've come to, everything that I am today. I don't often talk about this side of my journey. I don't think many people ask me this question, so I'm really thrilled to be able to discuss this today. But my I I grew up I would say Christian. I was in the church musicals, the youth choir. I did go to church, not regularly, I would say, but definitely on special occasions. And I would participate in activities with the youth. But I found a discrepancy in what I was being taught and what I was seeing in my community when it came to religion. And so it left me feeling disconnected and a bit lost. I'm not saying that the religion is bad, but I was just, it got me to a place where I was confused. And when I hit this dark night of my soul with my husband, it really gave me permission to explore every crevice of spirituality in order to discern what was mine and what I believed and what I wanted to follow as my guiding light. And so what I discovered in my journey, especially in my marriage journey, was that, you know, we are spiritual beings having a human experience, that everything is energy. And these religions that are out there are constructs to help people understand these unseen forces in a way that they can digest and translate and apply to their lives. So what I've come to understand is that I take all the love-based teachings from every religion and I subscribe to that. Most of them are universal when it comes to the love-based teachings. And then the fear-based teachings, I don't. I actually have my understanding. I know there's no right or wrong, and I am definitely not the wisest counsel when it comes to spirituality, but how I guide my own life is that I believe a lot of the fear-based teachings in religion came from human interpretation versus the true essence of what the lesson was meant to teach. So I take the love, I leave the rest. And
I like that quote.
Yeah, that's how I operate with my spiritual journey.
Thank you so much for your response.
Yeah.
I'm looking at your counterculture approach to relationships.
Yes.
Was that a process for you?
Yeah, the process, going back to my story, really was learning clinically, professionally, to how to help marriages as a couple, right? I got my master's degree, graduate school in marriage and family therapy, learned how to work with a couple, and then that failed us. Marriage therapy failed us. So the counterculture, like the culture teaches us that it takes two to tango, that if your partner isn't willing to do the work, you can't work on the relationship. There's so many subliminal messages out there in our society, in our culture, that says that your hands are tied if the other person doesn't want to participate. And that's not true. I've learned, although I say it's counterculture, it's actually pro-science because I come from this place where I teach my clients that there's a law of systems, and the law of systems, I use the best example that everyone knows about. The most common system is an ecosystem. We live in an ecosystem. We learn about ecosystems in school. I think everyone has some basic knowledge of an ecosystem. And that's exactly what a relationship is. It's a system. And when you change one part of a system, the system must and will change.
Yes, indeed.
And that goes for a partnership, for a relationship. If you change one person in the relationship, by universal law, by scientific law, the relationship must and will change. And it will either evolve or come to a natural completion. But it doesn't have to be this angry, resentful, horrible breakdown of the system. It just completes itself. And more often, it evolves. No living creature wants to die and just fold over and die. Every creature on this planet has an innate instinct to survive. So we will evolve.
Yeah.
And so will the relationship, majority of the time.
Do you ever find that some of the parties, I know you work mostly with the women, but sometimes you've worked with
actually a lot of times I work with the men, but I market towards the women because that's my perspective. So I'm like, I have your perspective. Let me talk to you. But I actually have just as many men working with.
I see. Well, that's good to know.
Even though I promote myself to work with women, they still come seeking the female perspective. So yeah, I work with both.
Do you ever find that the couple will evolve out of the marriage and not want to be married anymore?
Sometimes I would consider that a completion.
Yeah.
If they do find themselves feeling like the relationship served its purpose, we've completed this chapter and we're ready to move on. There has been times where that has shown up. But I want to caveat this by saying that our society talks about outgrowing your partner.
Yes.
And I don't like that terminology. I don't subscribe to that because everybody grows at their own pace.
That's true.
And even in nature, you grow alongside, like the tree will grow alongside the grass, but the grass doesn't reach the height of the trees. And, there's just in a symbiotic relationship, you're not with someone because they're the exact same species and the exact same plant as you. The beauty of our human experience is that we are so diverse and we bring so much color into each other's lives. And so maybe one person wants to be a tree and reach for the stars, and the other person loves to be grass and wants to stretch wide and far, low to the ground. And who are we to judge the other person and say, you're not complementary to me? Right? So I do not subscribe to the outgrowing of one another, but I do talk about completion. And I think it can go both ways, right?
It's a constructive term. And I
Yeah.
love the analogy of the tree and the grass.
Yeah.
They're both so beautiful and the colors
Right.
of nature.
And
Um,
so needed.
yes, yes. And
Both.
for each person to walk away feeling whole.
Right. Yes, that is the ultimate goal. I never tell my clients that the goal is to stay married. The goal is for them to feel empowered
Mm-hmm.
and to trust themselves. That's what they lost in their relationship, is the trust in themselves to make sound decisions. When I was with my husband and found out he had an addiction and was hiding it behind my back for 10 years, I questioned myself. What is happening? How did you not see this? You are a substance abuse counselor. He lives with you day in and day out. How are you so blind to what's going on? How did you let him treat you this way for so long? The self-doubt skyrocketed.
Mm.
And oftentimes, by the time people come to me for help, they have more self-doubt than anything in their life. And my
Mm.
job is to restore that so that they can make informed decisions,
Mm-hmm.
spiritually aligned, informed decisions for their life and their relationship. And once they get there, they're the highest authority. They're the one connected to
Yes,
source in their
that's right.
life.
That's right.
So I'm not here to tell them to stay or leave. I'm just here to guide them back to their truth,
Mm-hmm.
to their
Mm-hmm.
center, to who
Mm-hmm.
they are within themselves as a spiritual being. So that's my job.
Well, that's very loving. And I often say that love and compassion, when people are loving and compassionate, they're spiritual.
Yes.
Um, so that's a beautiful concept. I'm interested in the inner mosaic and the marriage mind shift. Would you
Okay.
say something about with you can start with whatever one you want.
Sure. We can start with inner mosaic. It is a model that I created based on the clinical models that I learned in my master's degree, but
Uh-huh.
also the spiritual models that I learned outside of the four walls of education in my spiritual journey. And I combined a lot of these teachings, none of which I take credit for originating. I
Mm-hmm.
just pulled them together in my own tapestry. Um, and it's a concept and a method, and I love to also call it a tool, but it is a tool for yourself to self-regulate, to learn to trust and love yourself. But the concept is we have many different parts.
Mm-hmm.
So each part of ourselves were created from a strong, impactful moment in our life. And so if you look at the timeline of your life, maybe you won an award,
Mm-hmm.
maybe and then it could be a sad moment, like maybe a pet passed away or a loved one or a divorce in your family, right? There's all these different things, all the way up to maybe getting married, getting a house, maybe
Mm-hmm.
getting a job, losing a job. So all these impactful moments create parts of ourselves. And if we're not aware of them, sometimes one of them can come. I say we're driving a bus, a metaphorical bus. One of them comes from the back of the bus and jumps in the driver's seat. And now you're having a full-blown panic attack, or you're having an adult tantrum and you don't know what's happening. Well, we try to just shove that part back to the back of the bus and reject that part of us. And we know that when you reject parts of yourself, that's how dis-ease or disease shows up in our life.
Mm-hmm.
So it's really this concept, it's simple, of learning to love and trust all parts of yourself and allowing all parts of ourselves to drive that bus. And when we can do
Yes.
that, life is just happening through us, and it's happening for us, and it's
Mm-hmm.
no longer against us, and we can navigate any situation.
It's a
That's
beautiful place to be.
it is. And it's just one concept that helps people to understand. One, it could be spirituality, but also two, it just understand, emotional intelligence and building that up in themselves using one model. There's many models. This is
Mm-hmm.
just one of them.
I see. Now we're
Yeah.
getting ready for another break, and when we
Yes.
come back, I'd like to hear you talk about marriage mind shift.
Yes, I would love to.
Okay, so
Thanks.
take it away. We're having a break now.
Were you an essential worker during the pandemic? If you needed to learn stages of epilepsy, did you depend on advocates? Did you use new innovations to cope with mental and neurological issues? Maintaining high quality of life and keeping good mental health are what we all strive for. I'm Frank R. Harrison, host of Frank About Health, and each week top healthcare influencers, professionals, and innovators answer these questions and more. Stay tuned on Thursdays at 5 p.m. on talkradio.nyc, and I will continue to be frank about health with all of you.
Are you a conscious co-creator? Are you on a quest to raise your vibration and your consciousness? I'm Sam Leibowitz, your conscious consultant, and on my show, The Conscious Consultant Hour, Awakening Humanity, we will touch upon all these topics and more. Listen live at our new time on Thursdays at 12 noon Eastern Time. That's The Conscious Consultant Hour, Awakening Humanity, Thursdays 12 noon on talkradio.nyc.
You're listening to Talk Radio NYC at www.talkradio.nyc. Now broadcasting 24 hours a day.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the A Train to Sedona with my guest, Samantha Kaaua. Samantha, I really want to hear about marriage mind shift.
Yes. So the marriage mind shift process is really the process that I take my couples or the one partner that I'm working with through. And it really, the reason why I called it and I named it marriage mind shift is because most of the work happens up here. And to transform your marriage, it actually starts from the inside out. And
Yeah.
what I do is I help them to change the subconscious beliefs that are running and ruining their marriage. Right? We know that many of us in this field of work know that our thoughts cause our feelings cause our actions, and our actions cause our results. And beneath the thinking, though, is our operating system, which is run by our belief system. So our beliefs are the filters and the system that outputs majority of our thinking. And if we want to change our results, we need to change the thoughts that we think. And in order to do that, we must reassess the beliefs that we're holding that create our results. So a lot of the work that I do with my clients has to do with rewiring their belief system around relationships. Many people do this in other areas of their life, but most of them don't know how to access the deep-seated beliefs about relationships because it's so, I think I want to say, like, I've never said this out loud before, but I want to say that relationship beliefs are so deep. They are like the most fundamental beliefs that we create because the instant we're born, we are forming the beliefs based on our relationships, based on the people who are protecting us and caring for us. And relational beliefs are survival beliefs. They literally will make or break our survival. So majority of us cannot even access it consciously. And that's the challenge. Once we can access the beliefs and bring it to the conscious awareness, then we can start to choose different belief systems that will support a healthy marriage, that will create the love of our lives, right? All of those things.
Can you give an example of how you would help someone, guide someone to retrieve an unconscious belief regarding relationship?
Yeah, there's many different ways to do it and different modalities, but the way that I find it most accessible is looking at your partner and how much they annoy you. The reason why I don't necessarily work with single people, I can, but I choose to specifically work with marriages is because you are not triggered by anyone more than your spouse.
Yes.
Majority of the time, it is your spouse that can get under your skin, has all the pet peeves lined up in a row, everything, right? So our results are a perfect reflection of our belief system, what we believe. So our partner is that perfect reflection too. If you don't like the way that you're relating to your partner or the way that they're treating you, with a caveat that I do not say abuse is our fault, I'm just saying the experience that we have of the person and the way that they're treating us, the story that we write about it comes from our belief system. So that's, to me, the easiest way to identify a subconscious belief is going and looking at your relationship, whether that's your, husband, wife, partner, or even just common relationship patterns all around, friendships, family members. What's the common story that ends up coming up in your life over and over again? And then we go find it and really unpack. Oh, men lie, men leave. Oh, we can't trust anyone because that's something my grandmother taught me. Or you have to be of service and make yourself useful, be seen and not heard, right? Like there's just so many different relationship beliefs, and I would say like these subliminal messages that we received growing up, that you got to use a fine-tooth comb to find it.
Yes. Another question I have is, I see that trust and faith play a big role in your work. Can you share why they are so essential in mending relationships?
I honestly believe that you cannot trust someone else until you've learned how to trust yourself. And part of self is the higher self, is source energy. And so that actually extends to faith, because faith is having trust in the unseen. Faith is having trust in something that isn't quite tangible in front of you that you can hold, but that you are walking with trust that there is something there that will catch you, that everything's happening for your highest and best good, et cetera, right? So if we can't trust ourselves, then we will likely experience a lot of mistrust in our relationship. So to reverse engineer that, a lot of people come to me with a breach of trust that happened, whether that's infidelity, addiction, lying to whatever capacity that there is. And they say, well, I can't trust my partner because they XYZ, they cheated, they were using behind my back. That was my story. Or some form of deception. And when I went through this journey, the light bulb moment for me was when my husband walked in the door one day. We were trying to mend this, right? We were trying to work on our marriage. And I instantly got irritated with him and started asking him a bunch of questions. And, because he comes in on eggshells, walking on eggshells, because he's scared because I'm scary, but he comes in walking on eggshells. And then I'm like, oh, why are you being so like skittish? Like, why are you acting so funny? And then off to the races we go on this mistrust train. And the thing is, he said, when are you going to start trusting me again? And I had said, because when you prove you're trustworthy. But it was backwards. I got it backwards. The truth is, he would never prove himself trustworthy if I never trusted my own decisions in my marriage. The reason why I didn't trust him anymore was because he duped me. He got me, he fooled me, and I felt dumb. I felt like, how did I not see that? So until I regained my trust in myself, I could never trust him. And funny thing, I learned how to trust myself, and then it didn't matter if I trusted him because he could show up anyway on any day, and I trusted that I would handle it with grace, with confidence, with ease, and I would make the exact decision that I needed to make in that moment for my girls and for me. So it didn't matter if I trusted him to tell me the truth. The moment the truth was discovered, I trusted I would make a sound decision. And that's all that mattered.
These moments are extremely important. We do need to take a break. And when we come back, I want to ask you about your statement that it takes one person to transform a marriage. So we'll talk about that. I find that very exciting. You
Thank you.
briefly alluded to it or stated a little bit about it, but I'd like to hear more of what you have to say.
Yes.
We come back.
Hey everybody, it's Tommy D, the nonprofit sector connector, coming at you from my attic. Each week here on talkradio.nyc, I host the program Philanthropy in Focus. Nonprofits impact us each and every day, and it's my focus to help them amplify their message and tell their story. Listen each week at 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time until 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, right here on talkradio.nyc.
Hi, I'm Linda Marsanico. The A Train to Sedona is a memoir about my journey to love and compassion. It's also the name of my new broadcast on Wednesdays at 12 noon. When we are spiritual, we embrace possibilities and ideas, which strengthen our mind, body, spirit, health, and wisdom. On the A Train to Sedona broadcast, I plan to interview guests who embrace these expansive practices. Join us on Wednesdays at 12 noon on Talk Radio New York City.
You're listening to Talk Radio NYC at www.talkradio.nyc. Now broadcasting 24 hours a day.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the A Train to Sedona with my guest, Samantha Kaaua. Samantha, let's talk about how one person can transform a marriage.
Yes. So we did touch upon it earlier when we were talking about the ecosystem and how one partner can be the change agent in changing the system of what we consider a marriage, right? A relationship. And the way that I go about helping people do that is, we also touched upon this too, is really working from the inside out. We're working on their belief systems when it comes to their marriage. And so let's get really specific here, right? A lot of times, by the time that people get to me, they're really on the brink of divorce. They've tried marriage therapy, it didn't work, right? They've tried individual counseling, it's not getting better. We're growing apart, we're not getting closer. It's not it's not happening. So this is our last resort. And the reason why individual therapy doesn't help them, even though I'm telling you to work on yourself, is because we're not addressing the root cause of the relationship problems, which is their beliefs about their relationships. In individual therapy, we don't look at that. We look at the beliefs about yourself.
Right.
We look at how to improve your own life. But in the way that I work with my clients, for one person to transform the relationship, we need to view it from this systemic lens of how your thoughts, feelings, and actions impact the relationships in your life. And then we reverse engineer that and say, well, what results do you want? What type of relationship would you love? Right? Let's put that on. And then who would you need to be to have that result? Right? What actions would you need to take to have a loving, caring relationship? For me, I wanted a husband. So I actually, when I was envisioning this, when I created my vision for my marriage, it was really hard for me to believe that my husband could be what I was hoping for in a marriage, because he said he didn't want to travel. He said he didn't want to move. He said all these different things he denied in my vision in the past. So what I did was I said, okay, it's him or someone better. And I put on a vision for the marriage I would love. And it included traveling. It included having family time, hanging out with couples, like couple friends, and then like with the kids even. And we would do adventures and go on adventures and hike and spend time outdoors and all the things that he didn't. I mean, he was an outdoors person, but he liked to dive, and that was very singular. It was very isolating, not community based.
Yes.
And
yes.
so I had to put that on. Then I said, who did I need to be to have this relationship? And I needed to start showing up that way before it happened. And even furthermore, what did I need to feel? What did I need to think? What did I actually need to believe that was possible in my relationships? And when I unpacked it, I realized, I said this a little earlier, I realized that my childhood consisted of men leaving me. My parents split up, and I spent most of my childhood with my mom, and I would visit with my dad here or there, but they split up and he left. He moved away. Then a little later in my life, I had, my grandmother was, had a friend. She never called him a boyfriend or anything because she had divorced her husband, and a family friend lived with us. And I considered him an uncle, like a family member. And he was my second father figure. Well, I was only about 7 years old when he passed away. And he passed away because he didn't want to tell anyone he felt sick the day before. He told me, but he said, don't tell anyone. I don't want to worry anyone. And the next day he died of a heart attack. And so men lie because they don't want to tell people the truth. And then they leave and they leave me. And here I was all these years later with a husband who was lying and who was leaving, escaping me through his addiction.
Yes.
He didn't want to physically leave me, but he was leaving me every day when he checked out. And he lied to me about his using because he was scared I would leave him, which was his own belief system. And normally our partner's belief system and ours are just such a perfect match, right? Like perfect storm. But that's really how you change the relationship with just one person, is you create a new construct in your own self about how you relate to the world and how the world relates to you. And that's when the magic happens. That's when the miracles show up. My husband is a completely different person today, not because I forced him to, because that didn't work. Trust me. Like I tried that way. It did not work. The resistance was really big. But when you organically do it, and you just start showing up differently before anything changes, before he changes, before anyone outside of you, any of your circumstance, situations, or conditions change, you start showing up differently. It's a law, it's a universal law, it's science. Everything begins to change.
It is magical because when you were talking about the process that you very brilliantly arranged, you're actually, I wouldn't say manifest. I think you're co-creating the new reality.
Yes.
And that's
absolutely.
That's amazing.
Because when you're in that vibration, when you're in that low vibration of like, he always lies to me, I can never trust him ever again, I hate this relationship, it feels so unloved, and you're just ruminating in that 24/7, you're going to co-create that in your life. The universe is going to say, oh, is that what you want? Okay, let's give you that. That's what you're ordering because you're thinking about it all the time.
Yes.
And so when we change that order to the universe and say, no, I'm going to become something that I want to attract and be complementary to what I want to attract, then that's when God, universe, whatever we subscribe to, says, oh, that's what you want. Sure, let me put that in the queue.
Yes.
Yeah. And my husband loves to travel with me. We hang out with our friends, our couple friends, our family, like the kids, we hang out together. We go hiking together. We have long, meaningful talks together. Mind you, not on a regular basis, because it does take some energy for him to do that. But when I need it, it happens. We can get through arguments by listening to one another and not getting defensive and triggered so much anymore. The people around me ask me, I just got a message yesterday. Who is this man that you're married to? I don't recognize him anymore because he's transformed.
How beautiful. What a happy success story.
Yes, I'm very grateful because that is what I had longed for, and I've done a lot of my work towards. And the hopes was that my girls got to see what it looked like to struggle and feel challenged and to overcome that by working on ourselves. So I really was blessed to be able to have them witness it instead of it be fixed before they were born. I think there was divine timing in them watching me walk through this journey and their father walking through this journey and facing his demons and his shadows through it all too.
And they can witness what love is, how it looks, what it does, what the energy is. It's
not always this light, fluffy, Hallmark movie love. Love is being able to dig down into the trenches with someone and say, like, I'm here. I can be patient. And that happened too. So we had two brink of divorce episodes, right? The first was when I was about to graduate with my master's degree and my comps. The second was about 2 years ago, and I knew what was happening. His addiction was coming back, his depression was coming back, and he told me he didn't love me anymore. He didn't want to be with me. He moved out. There was just a lot of chaos, and I got to use my model, my method in real time this time instead of retrospect, right? I built it in retrospect the first time. This time I got to use it in real time, and I got to show my clients, because I was very transparent and honest of what was happening. I got to show them how this all works and how I work it. And within 6 months, it turned around. So he went from, I don't love you anymore, I don't want to be with you anymore. And within 6 months, just from me holding space, I didn't let him mistreat me or mistreat our girls. I held really firm boundaries with that, but I held the container, and he was able to have enough breathing room to come to his own conclusion and his own awarenesses, which was really wonderful to watch.
I can imagine. And you had mentioned to me prior to this broadcast that you share a lot about your process with your clients, which is a very different model from the clinical model. Will you just say a little bit more about that?
Yeah, I value transparency and vulnerability in my life, let alone my work. And I think the medical psychology model is you do not disclose your own personal life to the client, because then you're making it about yourself and not about them. Well, I think that we've evolved in our society, and we can share our story if it's relevant. I don't just vent about my husband or tell my story the whole time I'm talking to my client. But if there's a relatable teaching story of how I walked through the lesson I'm trying to teach them, it's a story. We learn in stories. We learn by example. And why not learn from someone who's walked the walk and not just learned it from a textbook? And I'm not saying that's not valuable, but at the same time, I did it. There's value in that.
Yes,
so I want to share it. And that's why I share my story often.
I would think that your clients really embrace that and learn from it. I think it helps them have a lot of faith and trust in you. You can guide them because you've done it and you're knowledgeable about this.
And that's the temporary bridge is me sharing my story so they can trust in my story, right? Until they can trust in their own, until they can pull that back in a little bit. And my goal is to get it back in themselves and not be this guru or this guide, but more so just temporarily, hold on to my story until you can grab onto your own. And
I think that's a valuable part of working.
Yes.
We have just a few minutes. Can we just touch on the role that with your clients, faith, whether spiritual, intuitive, or in themselves, plays in the healing and the transformation?
That probably is one of the hardest things to teach, to be honest, when you don't have anything tangible to hold on to and say, like, do you see this block? Do you believe in this block? The block is here. You can touch the block, right? When we're talking about faith, we're not actually touching anything. It really is the invisible forces that we're placing our trust in. And the reason why it also is challenging is because people actually come to me sometimes saying they do have faith. They do have religion. They do have a relationship with God. And when I boil that down, they don't, because they don't have faith. They're not walking a life of faith, meaning they're not trusting that God or the universe has a plan for them, that things will unfold for their highest and best good. They're trying to hold on for dear life to change their partner or to change their relationship, not trusting that things are happening for a reason. And so I have to kind of undo some of their old constructs around faith and trust and religion and spirituality, and kind of solidify the foundation of love, right? That love-based faith.
Oh, love is an amazing and awesome vibration. We have just a couple of minutes. How can people find you, Samantha?
Oh, thanks. Yeah, I think the easiest, you can either find me on Instagram or Facebook, Samantha_Kaaua, or you can go to my website. It's www.thegems, and it has 2 M's, so TheGems.com. And if we have a few seconds, I can explain. The GEMS actually stands for the gift of each meaningful moment shared.
I like that. Very lovely. And what's the process when they reach out to you? What do you do then?
Yeah, so they can either book a free consultation. I do free 45-minute consultations to help them choose their next steps and decide on what to do next. Or there's courses that they can take that's right on my website, and they can and free resources that they can use, or they can buy my book. So there's tons of information on my website that they can explore for sure.
Thank you so much, Samantha, for being on the show. I've enjoyed this conversation. And I wanted to say to our listeners that next week, my guest will be Frank Harrison, who is also a host on Talk Radio New York City. His broadcast is Frank About Health. He'll be telling us some very interesting stories about his recent loss and his new documentary. So tune in next week at 12 noon. Samantha, thank you so much.
Thanks, Linda. Thanks, everyone.